Hi, everyone. Going to start off, and this is Webform, or Webforms for everyone. I'll go back and forth on that title. My name is Jacob Rockowitz. I'm known as J. Rockowitz on the web. I am a Drupal developer and software architect. I built and maintain the Webform module for Drupal 8. So I kind of just like to start out with, what is the Webform module? The Webform module is a powerful and flexible open source form builder and submission manager for Drupal 8. And this presentation is for everyone, in the sense I'm trying to target the site owners, site builders, and Drupal developers. And when I say site owners, it's the people who decide to use the Webform module. Why should you use the Webform module? What benefit does it bring to your site? And the site builders are the people responsible for building the forms, building awesome forms. And finally, as with everything in the Drupal community, there's the developers. What can you do with the Webform module? How can you customize it? And my goal is really to answer everyone's questions and do a presentation that walks through a lot of these questions that people have. And I'm going to open it up to questions while I go through this presentation. Since it's in 3 parts, at the end of each part, people can post questions by typing them in, and I'll look at them. And at the end, we'll open up the mic, and people can just ask me questions. Of course, if people are shy about asking questions, you can just ping me on Slack. And I've also decided just to show you my favorite Webform things. I did a blog post a little while ago, and I kind of realized to make my presentations more interesting, I want to point out things that I find very special and some people don't even know exist in the Webform module. So you'll see some of those. And for the Webform module for site owners, it's why should you use the Webform module? And the Webform module allows you to build any type of form or application. And the use case for the Webform module is that you build a form or copy a template. You publish the form as a page note or block. Then you'd collect form submissions. And then you send out confirmation and notifications, typically emails. You'd also, once those submissions come in, you're reviewing those results online. And ultimately, you're going to distribute those results. Maybe you'll download them as a CSV, or you'll remote post them to a CRM. I like to boil the use case down to 3 steps: build, collect, and distribute. And it helps to keep these 3 steps in mind while I demo just kind of like the basics of the Webform module, walking through how it works. So I have a clean install here, and I'm just going to go to the contact form. I think people are kind of familiar with this type of contact form. It's very similar to what comes in the core contact module, but this is provided by the Webform module. And for this demo, I just want to add a company field to this form. So I'm going to go over to the builder, and I'm going to say add element. I'm going to pick a text field. I'm going to call it company. I don't need to change any other settings. It ships with Webform module ships with reasonable defaults. I don't need to tweak everything just yet. I'm just going to hit save, and it adds the text field to the bottom of the form. And we can go over to the View tab and see that element. There's a mistake here. It's called company. It should be your company. It should be required. It probably should go under your name. So let's do that. And it's totally possible in the form builder where you could drag up company, hit required, save it, and then hit edit. What I like to do is switch to kind of a developer site builder mode where you can look at the source code behind the form. This is the markup, the render array that drives the form, and I can cut and paste an element. So I'm on company, I'm changing the label, moved it up, and now I'm changing it to be required by literally copying this property from one element to another, and I'm going to hit save. So we're still building a form here, but now I'm going to use a different tab other than the view. It's the test tab. And what the test tab does is it just populates the form with default data. It makes it very easy to test the form. You can even click this generate submissions, and I'll just show it to you. This will just generate 50 submissions for the form, which just allows you to see 50 records being created at one time. For now, let's just create one. And I'm just going to hit send message. And you actually have control over these defaults in the admin configuration settings. You can decide what they should be. And we have just submitted a form. So we went from build to collect. We just collected a submission. It sent out a notification and a confirmation email to 2 users, and it's displaying a confirmation message. And now that we've collected this data, let's review it by going to the results tab. And in this results tab, you can see the information. It's one record that went through. You can click through, look at that single record, review it. You could even convert this record to a PDF and download it. It just shows you on screen. I'll bring up PDFs more as I go along. You can also review it in a table mode, which is very useful for long forms. It just organizes the information into 2 columns. We'll go back to the form, go back to the results. So we're on the results. There's more features that I'll talk about, but from here, let's say we reviewed this and we say we want to pull these results out of Drupal. We want to download them. There's a download tab, and I can go to this download tab over here, and you can see that it starts with an export format. And you could have just a simple CSV, delimited text where you can control the delimiter. You can build an HTML table. There's even this PDF document, which if you had 100 submissions, it would give you a zip archive of each submission as a PDF document. For our purposes, I'm going to use an HTML table. I'm not going to open it in Excel. All these settings just allow you to kind of tweak the look and feel of this table, where you could say, do I want the titles of the elements or the keys? How do I want different entity references to be displayed? But really, for this purpose, I'll show you column options. Say you can pick which columns. By default, it's picking pretty sensible columns. I'm going to uncheck download export file because this will allow us to see it on the screen. So when I hit download, we're going to get this very simple table that you can open this type of table in Excel or Google Sheets, and it'll render as a page in the spreadsheet. And we kind of walk through the 3 steps. I'll go back to them as we built a form, we collected some data, and then we distributed. In this case, the distribute is a download of the CSV. So some things that I really like that I showed in the demo is the YAML source mode. This is incredibly powerful. What it allows you to do is see the entire form. It's extremely helpful if you need to tweak the labels of your entire form or just change the language. You can even copy pieces from one form to another. It also just helps developers really understand what's going on under the hood. The results table is fully customizable. So you can go and click this Customize button and pick and choose the column. This is a very lightweight way to change what's displayed. We even add the ability for individual users to pick exactly what columns they want visible on their table. Very useful if you have a lot of users looking at the same data and they have different goals. A marketer might be looking for one thing. The owner of the content might be looking for another. And you can even, so this is just built in, and it's a quick way to generate basically a view, a list of submissions. You can also use the views module and completely override this and create your own display from scratch. And the PDF submissions is just been one of the more popular features because it gives you a very portable way to share this data. Besides just looking at this on screen, you can attach that PDF to an email and give someone a pristine submission. It's fully templateable, so you can put a header and footer and brand it any way you want. So I've talked about some of the features, the PDF, but let's talk about just the general features included with the Webform module. And I like to just state, the Webform module provides all the features expected from an enterprise proprietary form builder combined with the flexibility and openness of Drupal. As I'm going through, you'll see the flexibility and openness of Drupal. There's a lot of functionality out of the box, and then there's a lot of functionality you can add on, and then you can build your own. And, with the features, you saw the drag and drop form builder. There's lots of features. I'm not going to demo. I'll give you ideas of how to get to them, but there's support for multi-column layout, dialogs, conditional logic. These are very common features. Even scheduling the open and closing of a form. You can pre-populate. Moving over to the right-hand column, you can set submission limits. You can let someone preview it. You can do an autofill. You can let them save a draft. The last one, and access controls. There's full level of access controls for a form and elements. And then there's confirmation messages and redirects. And that might seem like a simple thing, but I'd like to just show you there's a lot of capability for setting up confirmation messages. So that's the default simple confirmation message we saw, where you're just displaying a little box at the top. When you go to the confirmation tab, you've got 7 different ways to display a confirmation message, from a page to a redirect to an external URL, an internal URL. What I like is the modal, which I'm going to show you, and hit save. And when I go to test the form, I'm going to hit send, and it just opens a quick little modal dialog, and you can close the form and keep going. It's really helpful if you have like a subscribe to form at the bottom of the page. You don't want to take them away from the page or redirect them anywhere or even reload the page. It just pops a modal. With elements, there are a lot of elements. Standard HTML elements are supported. Advanced ones like email address, URL, file uploads are supported. And then you get into fancier ones like signatures, buttons, ratings. And on the right-hand side, I'm kind of talking not about elements, but enhancements. Select menus, making them work better with select to, or generating computed values, or even adding tooltips, slide outs. I think people are familiar with input masks, word counters, and there's a lot going on. And the best way to understand this is there's a style guide. There's a Webform examples module, and this is a kitchen sink of every element and feature available. So I'm scrolling through and just showing you there's, cute kittens. You can do image selection. There's a rating element. There's a signature element. Right below that's a Likert element. You can do terms of service. Then there's full support for entity reference. These are composite elements. There are multiple elements working together. And then I'm just trying to show the styling so a designer can see how these elements work. And finally, there's dismissible messages. And you can see quickly right below the multi-column layout. So let me keep going. And what I want to do is zoom in on one simple feature is there are a bunch of different ways to add labels and information to your input. This is showing every possible title, placeholder, and description you can add. And the little question mark is a tooltip, and it opens up in a pop-up. You can add a description, which is the most common way to do it, a little piece of text, and the more, which is I use if I have to have 3 paragraphs of text associated with an element. Like there's a definition there. I would not recommend using all of these at once. It's usually best to pick the right one for the right use case. In the Webform module UI, I use the tooltip all the time because I want to save space. And I don't expect people don't need to see the information in the tooltip every time. It's only if they need help. So I've walked through a lot, and I use, leave this at the end, but for the site owners, I want to just be like, how do you get support for the Webform module? How is this supported? And there's documentation, there's a cookbook and screencasts available on Drupal.org. There's 2 places to get different types of support. Drupal Answers, you get support requests. If you have a question of how to do something, you go to Drupal Answers, you post your question, and people answer it. In the Webform issue queue, people can make feature requests. If they find a bug, they can get help fixing it. We also do some planning there. Both are different places to go and get help. It's worth looking through and seeing what discussions are going on in both channels. And there are videos about every Webform feature. And this is the Help tab of the Webform module. And I'm actually scrolling to how to do views integration. So there's a dedicated views integration video. If you watch this video, it'll walk through the steps required to build your own custom views for your results. And all this that I've been talking about is to inspire, you, your team to build awesome web forms. And we're switching over to, site builders. I'm going to just look and see if there's any questions, because I don't mind if there's questions specifically for this. That's fine. I'm going to keep going, and we can do questions at the end. If you have questions while I'm talking, just type them in, and I'll look at it while I'm going through. So, Webform for site builders. Let's get it going. How do you build awesome web forms? It's learning from the examples, templates, and demos. So I did show you one of the examples, the style guide, and it just shows you, kitchen sink of everything. And, there's other examples than the style guide. There's an example of, if you turn on the Webform examples module, you'll get a multi-step form, a multi-column form. There's some advanced elements. And I'm also showing computed elements and composite elements. And I'm going to just show those to you a little bit. And, computer elements, this is a Twig, it's Twig in the background, and we're just doing simple calculation, adding 2 numbers together. So you have 2 inputs using Ajax to add the numbers together. In the back end, you can see you have the number inputs, and then you have this computed Twig. And I'm just showing you the Twig. Very basic Twig with very basic calculations with a checkbox to say do this dynamically. Second one is computed tokens. So it's not doing calculations, but it's just pulling values. So the idea is when someone selects a user, we're pulling in their user information, like their email address. And composites are multiple elements working together. So the first one you're seeing is just a first name, last name, and you could say, let's collect multiple. So you're collecting user profile information. This is very powerful because you can get addresses. And I actually think Yeah, by the way, I paused for a second because I blurred on. I just did a presentation about composite elements. It's on YouTube, and it's walking through a lot more detail about this and the capabilities. And it does list out, like there's an address where you can collect a full address. I recommend looking at that video. That's also included in the help section of the Webform module. So you can even build custom options. So this is, sorry that it got to the wrong spot in the presentation, but showing you, and I'm going to have to let it go to the beginning, but the idea here is you can specify how the markup should work. You specify what should be rendered on the page, and you can build things like maps. There's a much simpler example when this starts, where it's just buttons. And it's showing you, it's like a web component. You're saying, here's the template for the buttons. Scroll down, here's the CSS I want. You can set some default values, but then you can preview it, and you get your own custom buttons. And these are fully accessible with keyboard actions and everything. And the second example, which is started on, is a map. And so you're setting an SVG map with just a couple of attributes, and you're creating a clickable map of the United States. I use it for medical diagrams where people might want to pick different parts of the body. This is fully accessible with panning and zooming. And I think a big takeaway when I show a feature as complex as that is the Webform module and Drupal is one of the most accessible form builders and content management applications on the market. Both the Webform module and Drupal take accessibility from the front end of the website to the back end seriously. Someone with a disability can build a form. There's full keyboard controls they can navigate through. There's no keyboard traps. There's labels on everything. And then the forms that are generated meet, I think it's AA. They're used by a lot of governments that need it to meet accessibility standards. I just want to emphasize that. So we've just really talked about forms and elements. There's also templates. So templates are just starting a place. Here's an example of how to build a form, how to build an employee information form, a job application, event registration, or even a request a medical appointment. Because I work in healthcare, I kind of wanted to include something like that. And the templates tab just gives you these starter templates. You can delete them, but you can easily preview them and look at how the inputs are set up and how they're working. The request a medical appointment is a little more complex because it's using buttons and some conditional logic with some composite elements. And you can, when you hit select and save, you create your own instance of this form. And you can do anything you want. And you can create your own templates for your organizations and give people starters. It's basically a starter template, so they can just get started really quickly. The best example is if you're doing event registration and people need to keep making event registration forms, you can create a template for that. So what can you build using the Webform module? This is getting into building richer user experiences, like applications, like college applications or job applications. With registration process, you can have people, find an event and sign up.